Hello to everybody. One thing I appreciated that Kristen didn't attempt to introduce me using one of those strange tongue-twisty words that has entered the English language, ethicist. Um, one one of my colleagues was recently introduced in a setting like this, and he got up and he corrected the moderator, which is usually not a good idea to do. Um, and he got up and he said, "Well, thank you for that introduction, but I must correct you at one point. You introduced me as an anesthetist. I'm not an anesthetist. I'm an ethicist. An anesthetist is somebody that puts people to sleep." To which the moderator mumbled, "That's what I said, an anesthetist." Well, one thing I can assure you today, and that is that we are not going to be going to sleep during this session because we're going to be doing something very creative and interesting. We're not just going to be looking at words or voices on a screen, but we're actually going to be going to a website that uh, actually involves a journey through a series of natural scenes. You'll be on a pathway and you'll be moving forward, and then every once in a while, that pathway will branch, will fork into two or three options. And those options will be explained to you, will be identified for you because they're going to be talking about a choice or a priority or a value that you have, because this website is a tool that allows you to bring your beliefs and values and priorities to bear in creating an advance directive. Now, an advance directive, as you probably know, since you signed up for this, a medical advance directive, is a document that allows you to identify who you want to make medical decisions for you when you no longer are able to make them because of an accident or an illness. And it also allows you to identify some key priorities and values and beliefs that you want to guide your decision maker to make sure that they make decisions that are in line with your priorities. Now, that sounds pretty important. And so you won't be surprised that in a recent study, uh, they identified some 85% of adults were aware of this sort of a document and strongly believe that this is something that every adult person should have. And yet, the study also documented that only about 30 or 35% of adults have one. And this is even more important, many of those who have an advance directive already don't have one that's well tailored to their individual beliefs and values and priorities. They've just been given some sort of form in the process of some estate planning or medical situation or whatever. They filled in, their name and their decision maker and whatever, but it's not well tailored to their beliefs and values and priorities. So that's something that I'm going to show you how you can do that today by simply walking you through this website. And I'll identify the address for you, but we'll also send this out in the email afterwards so that you know how you can access it. We're talking about medical information, and we're talking about decisions that are to be made about our medical care. So the website is easy to remember. It's just medicaldecisions.info, and that's the site we're going to be going to. One thing you need to know about this is that it is a completely free site. It's a site that's available to you. You can access it anytime. There's no cost to use it. There aren't even any ads. Those annoying ads that you have to watch. No, none of that at all. This is a gift of work that was done on the part of a national group of people that just wanted to give back and make something like this available. So there's no cost, but it's completely private. And I'll show you how that is the case. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen on which I have connected to the home page of this site, medicaldecisions.info. So hopefully you'll be able to see it. If you can't, be sure to let me know. And this is, you should be seeing medical decisions, finishing life well. So this is the site. If you simply on your computer were to go and type in medicaldecisions.info, this is what would come up. And what you're going to see here is that you can do two different things on this site. You can use it to make a current medical decision, or you can use it to develop an advanced directive, which is going to guide those future medical decisions when you're no longer able to make them. So we're focusing on the advanced directive aspect of it. We have a few moments at the end. I make a few comments about how to use it for current decisions, but we're going to use it for the advanced directive. So you can see there, now you can just use your, like if I'm using my mouse here, you can see the cursor probably moving around, and I can just move it to make any choices that I need to make. Or if you have a touch screen, as I do here, you could just simply reach out and touch a choice that you want to make. So what I did is I touched Advanced Directives. And so the first screen you're going to see here is a screen that tells you what you'll receive here. Now, just to make it easier, I will read much of what is on these instructions at the beginning, just to make sure that everybody can see it well. You know, it says what you'll receive here, an advanced directive document with an instruction page tailored to your own preferences to guide your medical care when you're no longer able to guide it. And there's a statement here about privacy. You won't be asked for any personal information or payment. Your choices are not saved. Now, this is something that's very important for you to know. This is something that is completely private to your use. So when you pull up the site and when you do what I'm going to show you, you can do on here, travel down the pathways and make various choices, you're going to end up at the end of the pathways, as you'll see here, having created a legal document, and that'll come up on the screen and it'll reflect all the choices that you've made. Now, that document is something that you can save to your computer, or you can print it right off the screen. But when you close the website, when you turn off the computer, it's gone. If you're like, oh, well, let's see now, I want to refer back to that document, there's nowhere you can go. Because you see, when you use this site, you're not entering any personal information. You're not entering your email address, your phone number, your name, a username, something that you could use to come back and find that document, because that's not being saved anywhere. It's only when you're on the screen live and are creating this. If you want to keep the document, you download it to your computer, you save it to your computer, or you print a hard copy. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Let's take a look in the lower left-hand corner. Then it says read instructions, and you know there's just one simple screen that's going to give you a few instructions, and so I will just read those to you. Due to injury or illness, you know that sooner or later you'll likely lose your ability to make medical decisions for yourself. You probably want to be the one who decides now who gets to make those decisions for you. And there are some things you may want to say about how those decisions are made. A lot of considerations are involved, and this website will help you work through them. Working through them is like walking through a park while thinking through your decisions. At many points, the path you're on branches into two or three paths, and you'll decide which to take. This resource will name those paths for you. so that you can walk down the path that reflects your values and beliefs. Okay, so we're just going to click now on Enter the Park. And in we go to the first scene in which we're traveling down the path. And as you can see here, we're being given the choice of a couple of different options here. And that's always going to be the case here. Now, the choice here, as you can see, if you went left, you would be affirming, it says, go this way if you must always extend life, even by the slightest amount, even when doing so will greatly increase suffering. Whereas you're going to go right, it says go this way, right, if you don't think you must always extend life, even by the slightest amount, when doing so will greatly increase suffering. All right, now this is a watershed issue. This is going to distinguish people. On the one hand, people who would say, "Well, I think if there's anything available that can keep me going for the slightest amount, of course we have to do that. We have to do that treatment." And so there will be a number of people in that camp. Whereas other people will say, "Well, you know, there's a judgment call here. It really depends. I mean, how much benefit is there going to be? How much suffering or how much cost is there?" They're going to go to the right if they're going to say, well, no, I wouldn't say that if my life can be, extended, an hour, a few hours, a little bit, that it would be worth a huge amount of additional suffering. Okay, so there's two different ways, and it's a very important choice that you're going to want to flag right up front. So in terms of going left here, let's say that you went that direction and you said, yeah, absolutely everything, no matter what amount of suffering. Okay, so we're going to click on that option and we're going to move on into the next scene. Now, what's going to happen here, because that is a view that is somewhat at odds with the way that most people would think about these decisions, you're going to get a pair of screens like this. Go left here, as the left option is. Go this way if you wonder why so many people disagree with your choice to extend life at all costs. What the concern here is that um, most people would not say that. And so what the concern here is to make sure that you're making the choice that is in line with your beliefs and values. And if you make a choice like this, and the question is, okay, do you really understand, what you're saying in terms of no matter how much suffering is added, you want any additional amount of continued life to be fostered, to be made possible. Do you really understand that choice here? If you do, that's fine. So you can given this pair of choices, you can go right if you want to. If you say I don't care, it says go this way if you don't care why so many people disagree with your choice to extend life at all costs. You say, yeah, I understand what the issue is, and that's my view. Okay, fine. In other words, this resource is designed for regardless of what your beliefs or values or priorities are. This is going to help you bring them to bear on creating this advanced directive document. So all we're trying to do here is to make sure that you understand what this choice is about. And if you're going a direction that is at odds with the way that most people would go, then you may be offered an opportunity to say, well, do you want any more information on what this choice is all about? If not, here, you just go right. That's fine. But if you say, okay, well, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I would be interested in knowing why. Well, then you might click left and move on into the next scene. What's going to happen, though, before you continue down the pathways, is you're going to be given the opportunity to watch a short video, 3 or 4 minutes long, is all it is. And as you'll see here, there's a the typical arrow right in the middle of the video. You'll just click on it. Now you're not going to hear the sound here. You'll hear it fine if you're, playing it at home.
Why do so many
But
people oppose
it will, as you can see. So you're going to get that presentation, and you can turn it off or stop it at any point in time, and then you will move on into your next set of choices. And look at that. It was the same original set of choices. So it's coming back to you then and saying, okay, now that you have some more information, do you still want to always extend life? If you do, that's fine. Then you will click the option on the left and you will move on forward. On the other hand, if you're like, oh, that's okay, now I better understand what that question's getting at. Yeah, I think I would be here on the option on the right. So then you might end up clicking that one and moving forward. Okay, so some of these choices that you have are just going to face you with choices. Sometimes when you move into the next scene, though, you're going to get some information at the bottom of the screen. You see how it says there to help you decide at the bottom there? And so what this is talking about is it's giving you the option. It's going to say here you need to decide whether or not it's acceptable to intentionally cause a patient's death in some circumstances. In other words, to engage in some form of so-called euthanasia or what is variously called assisted suicide or medical aid in dying. So you can see right here, what we're doing at the very beginning is we're trying to see, okay, are your values such that you want a whole lot of treatment, no matter what the cost, or do you want very limited to zero treatment? So we're trying to kind of locate, and then we're going to home in as we go down through different scenes, the specifics, because a lot of people will fall somewhere in the middle. Now, this issue here, as you may well know, is something that's in the process of changing in terms of people's values. There are about 10 states or so in the United States that have legalized the process of assisted suicide or medical aid in dying, different terminologies there, which means that in the majority of states, including Illinois, it's not a legal option. So by flagging one's orientation to this, people can either say, well, that's not an option that I would want to consider, or you can flag the fact is that you would want to consider it if you were in a setting, meaning outside of Illinois at this point in time, where that was a legal option. So you're going to click here to see, okay, we can go one way if this is an option we'd want to consider, or we could go the other way if it's not an option that we would want to consider. Okay, so we could choose either one now. Again, this is to apply your values. That's the important thing, whatever those would be. We're going to move down these pathways. We won't have time to discuss or take a look at every issue on the pathway, but I want to give you some representative issues so you get a feel here for what you're going to be able to do and think through and put into your advanced directive here. Look at the bottom of the screen here. Now you can see the next issue that's going to come before you. It says, to help you decide, imagine you become permanently unconscious and you can neither communicate with people any longer nor live without being connected to life-sustaining technology, such as an artificial kidney or feeding tube. Is that sufficient reason to withhold or withdraw all life-sustaining treatment? Okay, so this is saying if you become permanently unconscious, has that moved you into a setting where you don't want to be kept alive by the various technologies that are available? So you're going to be given a choice to flag that here, either going left and saying, no, I wouldn't want the withholding or the withdrawing of life-sustaining treatment for that reason. No, don't stop keeping me alive just because I'm permanently unconscious. I don't consider that grounds to stop the treatment. Or you can go right here if you say, yes, I would want the withholding or the withdrawing of life-sustaining treatment if I reach the point where I become permanently unconscious, where there is sufficient information according to more than one physician who would identify the fact that uh, it looks like there is no medical way that that consciousness is going to be restored. So if I get in that situation, what are my priorities in terms of continued treatment? So again, we could choose either one of these right now, but what it amounts to is what is your value? What is your priority? What would you want under that kind of a situation? Okay, so that moves us then into another choice, which is not permanent unconsciousness, but it's something short of that. I'll read you again to help you decide, bottom of the screen. Imagine yourself experiencing enough mental loss that you can no longer make sound medical decisions. Would you want all life-sustaining treatment to be withheld or withdrawn in that situation? So we're talking about significant mental limitation, a situation where you're no longer able to even make mental decisions for yourself. So the dementia or the damage that's been done is to such an extent that you're still conscious, so we're not talking about unconsciousness. You're still conscious, but you've lost the mental capabilities to be able to make decisions for yourself and about your life. So, are you going to want medical intervention to continue to enable you to continue living in that state? Well, let's click here. We actually have three options here. And one would be to say, no, I wouldn't want the withholding or withdrawal of life-sustaining treatment in that situation. I would want the treatment to continue. So in other words, if one is saying, no, just the fact that I've lost decision-making capability, that's not enough reason to stop doing everything possible to sustain my life. Um, the middle option there is do withhold withdraw treatment. Yes, I would want the withholding or withdrawing of life-sustaining treatment in that situation. That's not a situation, a level of existence that I consider to be worthy of supporting with continued medical intervention. Or there's a third option here on this, and that is, as it reads, I would only want life-sustaining treatment to be withheld or withdrawn in that situation if the person making the medical decisions for me judges that I can no longer fulfill any of my main purposes for living. Okay, so that's a more nuanced position. That's not saying, yes, keep me alive, or no, don't do anything to keep me alive. But it's going to say, well, we're going to have to look a little more carefully at this idea of how diminished my mental capacities are and whether I have any purpose for living that would warrant me to be sustained in that condition. And you'll see how that cashes out at the end when we look at the document that we're creating here. So again, the choice we would make would be whatever is your choice in this situation, whatever respects your values and beliefs and priorities. So we would move down that choice, whatever that is, and take a look at this next issue to help you decide. Bottom of the screen, people should normally have access to food and water if possible. But once someone cannot swallow, food and water can only be inserted through something like an IV needle or a surgically implanted feeding tube. Most people think that doing so is not automatically justified. For example, it may harm a patient by causing bloating when their body no longer can absorb fluid well. So it's giving you a little bit of information there to say, because many people would say, well, of course I want food and water. And if it has to be, inserted medically, through a tube or IV, of course I want food and water. But it's flagging the fact here is, well, keep in mind, are you aware that sometimes inserting it in that way, depending upon how deteriorated the body is, that can cause problems. That can cause, bloating or discomfort or whatever. So, do you have an absolute view on that? That is, that medical insertion of food and fluids is always required, that you always must continue to give the food and fluids that way, no matter what else is happening? Or is your view that, well, I mean, normally, yes, but if that could make the situation worse, then maybe I would take a little more nuanced approach to that. That's People are going to differ on that. And so you're going to make a choice here as to whether it would always be required, artificial nutrition and hydration, or whether that would depend upon the judgment call of the benefit versus the burden of doing that. So you would make a choice here and continue on down the pathway, and look at that. What you're going to find is no matter what set of choices you make, eventually you're going to come, and it's not that lengthy a process. I mean, as you'll see, we didn't have to make that many choices on this pathway that we took. You have designed your advanced directive, as it says here. So as it reads, select download to view, print, or save the advanced directive that reflects your wishes. So we're going to click on download document because of course, we want to at least see it. And then we can do several things with it, as I mentioned. If you don't want to keep it, you can just look at it. If you were just doing this to see what the document would look like. But presumably you've done this because you actually want a document that you can keep. And so you're going to want to at least save this to your computer. And then you can complete it. If you print off a copy, you can fill in the blanks. Like if you can see there, the first line is just for your name. You're the person doing this. And then you identify the first person you want to be your agent, your decision maker. Their name's going to go in there. So there's a certain amount of information that's just descriptive information that you have to fill in a document like this. You got to put in your agent's address and phone number and that sort of thing so that they can be reached to make emergency decisions for you. So if you can see the document here, you'll see on these blank lines a light blue kind of background. And what that signifies is that while this is a PDF document, you can type right into it, just as if it's a Word document or something else that you would normally type into. So if you save this document on your computer, then you've got it, and you can type in any additional information that's there, or you can print the document and you can handwrite in, the names of people and whatever needs to go in there. Let me scroll down this page, though. The whole document you're going to get, you may see on the left side of the screen, it's showing 3 pages. That's because the advanced directive itself is going to be 2 pages. The first 2 pages I'm going to show you here, and those can be printed if you want to for convenience on the 2 sides of a single sheet of paper. So that way you will have the paper version of the advanced directive will just be a single sheet of paper, which is very convenient to have. The third page here is a set of practical instructions. There's a bunch of questions that come up like, who should I give a copy of this to? And what happens if I want to make changes? And, those sorts of practical questions. So those are all answered there on that extra sheet that's going to be a part of this document that you can print out or you can save. So let's take a look at the advanced directive itself. The advanced directive, here's the first page. You're just identifying the agent who's going to be the decision maker for you. And then you can see here on the rest of the page, there are a bunch of bulleted items here that are going to give direction and guidance to your agent, to your decision maker. These are reflecting all of the choices that you just made. When going down these pathways and making your decisions and your choices, all of the guidelines are laid out right here that are reflecting your choices that you've made as you went down the various passageways. Then on page 2, you have a space here where you can add information about some other issues that were not specifically addressed in the pathways. Like if you have any instruction regarding pro or con organ donation or your burial, or those sorts of things, you are welcome to add that information here. And you can add additional pages to the document. And you're going to have identified there's a place right here, right under guidelines regarding my care, where you're going to note the number of pages that you added to the document if you decide to add any more pages. You don't need to at all. It's just designed to be a simple sheet with two sides that conveys all the important information that is most directly relevant to the medical decision making that needs to go on. You can add as much as you want to. The other thing that's happening on page 2 on the backside of the advanced directive is you're identifying 2 alternate agents. And while you don't have to have more than just the one primary agent, it's really helpful to have a couple of others. I mean, if the one person is not available, or that person were to be traveling with you and you and that person were injured at the same time, then it's good to have a backup or two. And that is your option. It's easy to fill in that information here. You're also going to sign the form, of course, and you'll see at the very end of this page 2, a place for witnesses to sign. Now, it's important for you to understand, while this is a legal document, and it is legal as long as you get witnesses to sign it, it does not require, there's no requirement that it be notarized. So you don't need to involve an attorney, a lawyer to draft this document. You don't need to get somebody to notarize it at a bank or somewhere else. This is something that you can completely do on your own. And this has been designed to contain all the information that needs to be there in order to meet the legal requirements. Now, the legal requirements do vary a little state by state. So this document is designed to be comprehensive in the sense that you can use it to meet the requirements of various states. So one state might say you need it to be signed by one witness. Another state might say you need it to be signed by 2 witnesses. So this is going to ask you to have 2 witnesses and to fill in their information and have them sign it, so that if you're traveling around the country, you're going to have a document that is readily usable. And on that 3rd page of the advanced directive that I mentioned that has various practical information, there's actually a link there, a site that you can go to if you want to check the specific requirements of your particular state. I can tell you that for those here in Illinois, which is where we're having this presentation right now, yes, everything is clearly and straightforwardly embodied in this form. But you'll also find that to be the case as you travel around the country. So here you go. Here, that's what the advanced directive is going to look like. You'll want to save it to your computer. And after, you can either, if you want to fill it in by hand, you can print it out, or you can type the material right onto the pages on your computer, and then save it, and then print it. Again, there's practical information about how to use the advanced directive, and you'll find that on your the third page, the information here. So it's entitled Advanced Directive for Healthcare, um, Introduction to your Advanced Directive Form. So it's going to explain here about advanced directives in the first paragraph. The second paragraph talks about, as I talked about, this is a state by state thing, but they're that those are embodied from the various states, the various requirements in the form here. The link, if you have any interest in checking the way the requirements of any particular state are worded there. It explains the two components of the advanced directive in the third paragraph. You're identifying an agent, and you're embodying the key values and guidelines and priorities you want reflected here. The fourth paragraph here notes something very important about this advanced directive, and that is that there can be big problems with many of the standard forms that people have when these two aspects of the advanced directive are in conflict with each other. I mean, picture this. You've got an advanced directive that gives a person authority to make decisions on your behalf, and it lays out what your values are, what you do want or what you don't want under these particular circumstances, the kinds of things that we took a look at in the scene. Well, so what happens if a situation arises that you never anticipated, or it's an exception to the general rule or guideline that you had? So you might end up with a situation then where your guidelines, your stipulations that the agent must follow conflicts with what the agent recognizes you would want in that particular situation. So which do you want to take priority? The judgment of your agent in that situation, or the general guidance that you put down in your document? Now, most advanced directives don't address that, so you're just stymied. You've got a big problem there. Illinois law is actually biased towards, it says that if a doctor is making a decision based upon the statement of an agent, your agent, they're only protected, they're only shielded from criminal and civil liability if they are acting in accordance with the written guidelines. Now, I would suggest, I know for me personally, I would really want the agent, the person who I know understands me and my values, I would want them to be the definitive interpreter. If there's an exceptional situation that arises that they know would be different than the general guidelines I've put down, that's one of the big reasons I want an agent. So I would want them to be authorized to make the decision. And that's what this advanced directive does. It's explicit. It says that the agent is supposed to follow these guidelines, but if they recognize that there's an exceptional case in which what I would want is different from that, they are empowered to act accordingly. And that's a very important provision, I would say, that one would want to have in their advanced directive. Now, if you disagree and you want the other way around, then it's explained in the practical guidelines here, these final bullet points, how you can simply cross off a point and say, and just write in that you want it handled the other way around. It's no problem to do that. But I think it's important to recognize that the default here, I think, is a very important default. And that is that we are going to empower your agent, the person that you have individually chosen, and you've given a copy of this, and you've enable them to understand in advance if they have any questions, what your values and priorities are. That's what you want respected and protected here. Okay. Well, are there any other questions right now? I mean, there's other material that I can show you, and probably what I would do, for example, is I would go back to where we were going through before in terms of our scenes. And I want you to note here in this resource that on every screen in the upper left-hand corner, there's a back button. In the upper right-hand corner, there's the home button, which means that, sometimes you'll go down a pathway and you'll make a choice, and then you'll think, well, I'm not sure if that's exactly what I wanted. And you'll just want to go back to the previous screen or want to see again, what were those two options again? The back button just moves you back one screen, and you can go back one screen at a time as often as you want to. Maybe you're well into the document, like we went all the way to the end, and you want to go back to the beginning to see something else or to go through it again or whatever. That's the home button, which I'm going to select now. It's going to bring you all the way back to the beginning and that first screen where we saw that you could use this resource to either make an advance directive or to make a current decision.